Hey, welcome back to the Chris and Ryan Credo Report. This is actually one of our Credo commentaries. So I'm Ryan Schneller, and you may notice Chris isn't here as usual. When it's a commentary, it's just one of us. So going to try to keep this one shorter than my last one, but I wanted to talk briefly about Christians and politics. But to get there, I'm going to start with a Bible study that came out. There was this Bible study that came out. It's a 6-week Bible study, and it is called The After Party. And this is a Bible study that was created by a far left group of progressive Christians. But the more interesting thing about it, besides who actually created the curriculum, is that it is strongly supported by large donors that are far left political ideologists that aren't necessarily Christian. And it is also funded by secular companies. And so you kind of want to ask this question, why is that being funded? Why is a Bible study being funded by people who aren't Christians, who don't believe in the Bible? Well, to get there, we have to look at what the main thrust of this Bible study is. So the main thrust of this Bible study is that Christians should avoid engaging in politics. Basically, they're saying that we need to put our focus on Jesus, which is a good message. We'll get back to that. And just stay out of the political arena. The idea is that it's not worth breaking relationships over. It's not worth hurting people over. And that there are ways to engage in politics that won't create any type of division or hostility. And, there's nothing in that makes me cringe. There's nothing in there in those particular messaging points that they've said that I would cringe at. But throughout the whole Bible study, it basically would want to convince you that you should just stay out of all kind of political discussions whatsoever. And this is mainly advertised towards conservative-leaning Christians. And so while the central premise is good, this idea that we need to refocus on Jesus and make him the center of our engagement, of our lives, of our discussions, we have to wonder if there's an underlying agenda when those that tout this message are doing the opposite. In other words, it's basically the people who wrote it are political pundits. They're people who continually voice their position on political agendas and things. I mean, one of them is a New York Times columnist. They're all very, very outspoken in their political beliefs, yet they've created this Bible study trying to convince people to not be outspoken on political beliefs. And then you also have to ask, why are far left corporations funding this Bible study and then not putting their names on the website? Like, you actually have to hunt to track it down and find out who funded this Bible study. They have a few logos of people who are partnered with them that are all, we'll say Christian, to be nice. But the main people that are funding it have left their names off. Generally, in my experience, when a company wants to fund something and put their name on it, they want people to know because they want the publicity, right? They want people to say, hey, this corporation is doing something good. They're behind something that I am a part of, so I would do more business with them. But they're keeping their names off of it. So to me, there's an underlying agenda that this far left Bible study is trying to prevent people who are on the right from getting engaged in politics. So there's some sort of an agenda to squash the conservative side of Christians. Now, I'm not doing this commentary to discuss whether the left or the right is correct. You may be able to tell from most of my views that I tend towards the right. But that's not what my agenda is here. Say I have an agenda. That's not what my position is here to talk about today. What I wanted to ask about is the central issue, the same thing that Bible study is trying to get, which is that they say Christians should not be engaged in politics on any level. I guess what I would like to address is that central issue. How involved in politics should a Christian be? Because like I said, I agree with some of the messaging from that Bible study, that Jesus should be the center and the focus of our discussions and everything. And so if evangelism is the best tool for change in this world, is there a place for for politics. So I'm going to look at this on 3 different levels, each one getting more complex than the previous. And the first one is, should Christians vote? And the absolute answer to this is yes. In Mark 12:17, Jesus, in talking about taxes, he said, Jesus answered and said to them, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. You know, Jesus said, I know that when you're under governing and ruling authorities, that there are things that have to be done. There's a way that you fit in with this society, and you should actively be a part of that. So by being a part of the American people, part of America, or whatever country you're in, if you have voting rights, then part of your civic responsibility is to vote. And it's actually in the Bible that we should do that. In fact, listen to Paul in Romans 13:1-7. He said, let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority resists the ordinance of God, and those who resist will bring judgment on themselves. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Do you want to be unafraid of the authority? Do what is good, and you will have praise from the same. For he is God's minister to you for good. But if you do evil, be afraid. For he does not bear the sword in vain. For he is God's minister, an avenger to execute wrath on him who practices evil. Therefore, you must be subject, not only because of wrath, but also for conscience sake. For because of this, you also pay taxes, for they are God's ministers, attending continually to this very thing. Render therefore to all their due, taxes to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. So you see, Paul's even advocating for Christians to recognize and be a part of their civic responsibilities within the governing. And obviously, that was not Paul's major focus of his life, but he still said we should do that. Now, we'll come to issue number 2. Should Christians be vocal about political issues? And by being vocal, what I mean here is having discussions with family and friends. This is kind of where that Bible study steps in and is like, hey, don't do this because you're just going to cause rifts within your family. You're going to lose friends over it. We need to be peaceful. And while we do need to be peaceful, my answer to this about should we be vocal about political issues and have these discussions is yes. It's a resounding yes. Being a Christian should shape our worldview. So therefore, anything that we ever discuss, anything that we talk about, any activity we're engaged in should be through a biblical lens. The fact that I'm a Christian supersedes everything I do in life, and it makes it so that whatever I'm talking about is always going to have a biblical perspective from it. It's always going to come back to God and Jesus. And so therefore, when I'm talking about things with family and friends, that's always going to come up. It's always going to be there in that discussion. Now, it should be done in love. It should be done with an attempt at peace. But the truth is, Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace. I came to bring a sword, and I will set mother against daughter, father against son, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, the whole thing. And that's because sometimes following him comes at a cost. In Matthew 5:14-16, Jesus said, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand. And it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. We're supposed to be light. We're supposed to be the salt of this earth, changing things. And the truth is, most of the political issues that people think of when we say having these discussions of political issues are actually morality issues. They shouldn't even be political issues. They're morality issues. Do we support abortion? What about homosexual, transgender rights? Racism. These are all moral, ethical issues. So of course we should talk about them. We're Christians. That's what we do. Number 3, the third level of this and the final one is, should Christians engage in social justice? And so here what I'm talking about is protesting, picketing, getting out and being active in the community to make change in the political arena. And so this one is actually significantly more complex than the last 2, because I agree with that Bible study. The greatest thing that we can do as Christians to make change in this world is evangelize the lost. If the lost come to know Jesus, then the evils will stop. But there is a reality to this. that there will always be evil in this world, and that everyone that we want to reach for Christ is simply not going to choose to accept him. So this to me becomes a case-by-case basis. There's nothing in the Bible that says, go out and advocate for justice, specifically go march, go do picket line, do whatever. But there's also nothing preventing it. So Paul never advocates for social justice. He never tried to change the government. He went in strictly as an evangelist. Jesus also never tried to change the Roman government. He simply set up a whole new government and he's made his kingdom, and put it in this world. But both Paul and Jesus had specific callings and specific missions. And I believe that we all have that too. And so my best advice I can give on this is listen to the Holy Spirit. What are you passionate about? Jesus said he only did what he saw the Father doing. If you are passionate and you find this passion and it comes from God and you've talked about God and you are passionate about standing up against abortion, or maybe you're passionate about the homeless, or maybe you're passionate about, whatever it is, you can pick. Then follow that, because those passions, God created you with those passions. God created you with those desires. And so there's probably something in there that God is saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. You can make a change. But whatever we do, number one, we're gospel-centric, right? We don't just push for social justice and ignore the lost that are going to spend an eternity in hell. We always want to do it through a lens of the Bible. In Colossians 3:23, it says, whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not to men. So whatever we're doing it for God. We're doing it to the glory of God. We're doing this with God in mind, right? And then in 1 Corinthians 13:1, it says, though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but I have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And my point here is whatever we do it through love. There's no reason to bomb a clinic. There's no reason to resort to violence. There's no reason to do those things. Yes, you may see, as particularly from those that are against us, that violent acts can make change, but we don't go to their level. We never resort to sin to make a point. In fact, we flee as far as we can from sin. We will do things the right way. We do things in love. We are peaceful. We're Christians. And so no matter what we do, we're Christian first. We are Christian in all things. We are followers of God. So no matter how we want to approach this, whether we want to be involved in social justice activities or not, the point is, if we do, it is through love and it is to the glory of God, never because of our own agenda and never out of spite, anger, or hostility. So that's my position on this. I know that there's probably going to be a lot of disagreement on this. Feel free to put it in the comment section. I'm going to check on it and try to respond to those things. But if you haven't watched one of our full episodes, I encourage you to do so. Next week, we're going to have another great episode coming out, and Chris will be back. It'll be the two of us bantering. I will, go ahead and do all the things that you do on YouTube. Subscribe, ring bells. I don't know what else you do. Share, like, subscribe, share. And I'll see you next week.